Yeah, it really can. I mean, the good thing about it is that it doesn't matter who you are, it can benefit you.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to these folks, are you talking about it primarily as a store of value or a medium of exchange?
We're mainly talking about what Bitcoin can do for the country and for the people in the country. And that can be different things. Obviously, I mean, some things are really the same for all countries. You can have the fact that you use Bitcoin as a means of payment, I believe every country should do, but not making it legal tender, like El Salvador did, because that is a step too far for many countries. El Salvador didn't have their own currency, so they had the US dollar, but they didn't have an own currency. So it was easy for them to make Bitcoin the second currency.
Yeah.
Now, if we would have proposed that in Suriname, they would never have taken that because they have the Suriname dollar and they don't want to drop that.
Yeah.
It would even create chaos if they would say tomorrow there is no Suriname dollar anymore.
Yes.
So those are things you cannot do. But we also proposed in Suriname, for instance, to the central bank to put 1 or 2% of their reserves into Bitcoin because we think that would be a great investment and over the long term that would benefit the country. They're not ready to do that, but I believe we made a good impression. They will start thinking about it. But for the same reason that we talked to them, they are now putting up working groups and looking into making Bitcoin a legal payment in the future.
Wow.
Again, that may not happen within the next months, but they do realize that if they want to benefit from being one of the first countries to adopt Bitcoin, that they should do something. Because the whole thing is, especially in Latin America, all these countries suffer from high inflation, and they see what El Salvador has done. And now they want to know how they can do something similar, at least how can they have the benefits from it.
Yeah.
And then we explain them that they should not just talk about Bitcoin, they should make it legal to use, they should make some laws so that investors know that if they invest in the country, their money is not lost. And then you can start about attracting businesses, attracting investors into the country.
Yeah. So you're creating like a regulatory framework that is very investor friendly, and so people want to actually go and invest. And you know, from what we hear, El Salvador has become that, and people's sentiment is so much more positive and optimistic and all that kind of stuff.
Obviously, such a conversation with a European politician is completely different. Because in Europe, I mean, you don't have to tell them to put Bitcoin into their reserves. That would be a waste of time, I think.
Yeah.
You also don't have to tell them to make it legal tender. But here it's more about Bitcoin mining, I believe. Whether Bitcoin mining is bad or not bad for the environment, that's a big discussion in Europe.
Okay.
And also about Bitcoin as a store of value.
Interesting. Okay, so that's predominantly the way you'd approach developed nations, is to talk about it as, you know, these opportunities in mining, rather than thinking about putting a percentage of their, you know, reserve assets.
Probably not going to happen immediately.
Yeah, I believe there was a petition going around, or there was some sort of chart or something going around in Australia where they were trying to encourage the central bank to put some Bitcoin on their balance sheet, because apparently we literally have 2 gold bars and the rest here in Australia, and then the rest of the gold was sitting in London or something to that effect. So it's like, you know, not your keys, not your cheese kind of thing. So, you know, and there's nothing else backing the Aussie dollar. So I would have imagined that strategically, if you wanted to preserve the purchasing power of your currency, imagine what the power could be, what that could do if you put like 1% into Bitcoin.
That 1% will become 10% over a couple of years, and then it will continue growing.
Yeah. But I think your point is well taken, in the sense that I think most people in European countries, I'd put Australia and you know, the US into that sort of bucket, they don't see the problem with the fiat currency system yet, and it's only in Africa and Latin America where they feel the pain acutely, to varying degrees, some places much worse than others, that they seem more ready to open their eyes to a different financial system. Yeah, okay, so that makes a lot of sense, and so you'll talk to them about the mining. Do you feel as if on the mining side, though, that we've overcome the majority of FUD, and that there's now enough good news momentum that will basically put this one to bed, and just like, can we just stop talking about the boiling the oceans and stuff, because it's nonsense?
I don't think we're there yet, but I heard about working groups in Europe too, explaining to policymakers that it's not that bad at all. But I think we're still not there yet.
Yeah.
No. Still a lot of work to do.
There's that Dutch economist, digi-economist, who famously quoted in all of the energy consumption stuff and tries to produce all this data around, the amount of energy per transaction, and it's been just debunked time and time again, and still this person gets quoted. And so, yeah, I know it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but I think that we're winning on that front.
I also think so.
Yeah.
In the end, they can't ignore it anymore.
Totally, and it's such a no-brainer. And I was talking to some folks yesterday here about how energy companies are invariably merging with mining companies,
Yep.
and they'll be kind of one and
Yep.
the same in the future. It's such a no-brainer to sort of, as an energy producer, to like just learn about Bitcoin, because it's a phenomenal supplementary mechanism for you to just bootstrap your operations. It's such great, grid balancing, all this kind of stuff. It actually blows my mind.
It does.
Yeah, it's very powerful.